What's encouraging to me by your answer is that you clearly understand. I asked the question, if these organizations, when they implement these policies, these accumulator adjustment programs, if they're allowing patients to continue to use the assistance, then what's the issue about whether they're going to access the drug? I think what a lot of people misnomer in that is that these assistance programs, let's start with pharmaceutical manufacturer assistance programs. They have a copay card, as we want to call it. And we shouldn't confuse those copay cards with the same as a $5 copay card that you find in the Sunday flyer that level sets one drug against a generic drug. We're talking about high-cost specialty medications. And so when there's assistance offered, and again, starting with the manufacturer, they have a maximum annual limit to what the assistance can provide. And so if the patient has, and today we're seeing higher and higher deductibles, higher and higher out-of-pocket costs being borne by the patient, as you've mentioned, but when the patient utilizes these assistance dollars, if they had, let's just use the $5,000 deductible example, because that's close to the average deductible with folks on the marketplace. But if we take a $5,000 deductible and they have a copay card from a manufacturer that's worth $10,000, the patient is only able to access their medication in January and February, because they'll use that copay card in January. They'll take $5,000 off, which will give the patient access to their drug. But then on the back end, they reset the member's deductible to reflect only what the member paid, which is nothing. So it still shows he owes $5,000. In February, they'll use the remainder of the balance of the assistance on the back end, reset the member's deductible to reflect only what he paid, again, which is nothing in that case. So he still owes $5,000. So in March, when it's time to get his meds, the assistance is gone for the year. He can't re-up at assistance until the following year. He's got to come up with a full $5,000. And this is using the data you shared about half of Americans can't afford $400 or $500. This is where the problem lies. And for patients with high cost, high value, I call them life-saving treatments that they need to access, they're going to be hit by these costs, the out-of-pocket and deductible at the beginning of the year, every single year, year after year. So that's where you talked about the abandon rate being 69% for folks who have a deductible or an out-of-pocket exposure of $250 or more. From that study, imagine 5,000, and imagine you have more than one child in your house or more than one person with a chronic condition, and you have to meet a family deductible or out-of-pocket maximum. So it's encouraging me that you understood that piece by your answer. I just want to make sure that that's level set across anybody who might be listening. Thank you for that. And so you talked about the Janssen U.S. Prescription 2020 report. You talked about the 2019 report. I think you were referencing with that Dr. Bruce Sherman's report.
Exactly right, yeah. And it was a well-done study and published in American Journal of Managed Care. So I'd certainly recommend anyone to certainly take a look at that study. It's public domain.
And so this is where, for folks that are on these plans, we will hear often from whether it's employers or folks out there who are proponents for these copay accumulator adjustment programs. Well, listen, if these patients are on a high-deductible health plan, have them put money in their HSA pre-tax, and then they'll be able to access their medicine at a pre-tax value. The problem is they're going to hit that max out-of-pocket at the very beginning of the year. You can't access your HSA until the money's already saved. And the max you can save in any given year, and this in 2021 set by the IRS, is $3,600. But the max deductible or out-of-pocket for a high-deductible health plan is $7,000 for an individual or $14,000 for a family, with an HSA max for a family being $7,200. So far short of the money needed, not available till the full money saved, and that's only assuming that every American had the capacity to save that money. One thing I want to share with you, we did a patient survey across multiple chronic conditions. Of the respondents that depend on copay assistance, more than 65% of those who depend on that assistance actually make less than $40,000 a year. So there's already disparities in health inequities in that population of patients, but to think that somebody who makes less than $40,000 a year is going to be able to incur those types of cost burdens leaves these folks far more vulnerable to abandonment. So this is the data, this is the facts.